Good afternoon, Scott Baker, Sierra Holland. How are you both?
I think pretty
I'm
good.
on the I'm on the brink of spectacular, as one of our colleagues likes to say.
The brink of spectacular. Yeah. Uh, I sometimes usually just say, fantastic or dynamite, and I just thought I was gonna be a little more truthful. I was gonna disclose. I was gonna be vulnerable. Pretty good. This field note on relationship range is very important, and because in a way, a leader's effectiveness is eventually sort of capped by their ability to have relationships in the widest range possible. Which is evidenced, Mikey, because Sierra doesn't really like us, but she tolerates us, and she's willing to spend
Not
this time
true.
in our.
I know she likes me. I know she does. I've been
I
living with
carefully
that truth.
understood. I carefully understood every sentence in that, every word in that sentence. So,
For sure.
but this gets into the nature of relationship range. It gets into sort of what does kind of create good relationships, and there's a challenge to leaders here that I actually think works. This idea of purpose. So we're going to get to the idea of purpose and how we use our relationships and our purpose together, if that makes sense. So, Sierra, why is it that you like Mikey?
I will say, sorry, I'm making note of something I want to bring up later.
Hmm.
I mean, of course, I love talking to both of you. I would say
Hmm.
this would apply to either of you, actually. And I was actually going to start with a compliment to you, Scott, but this applies to both of you, so I'll start here.
Okay.
Both of you have such a well of great stories and engaging places that we can go. I feel like I'm surprised by every story I hear from each of you, which at this point I should stop being surprised by anything.
It's just
But
age.
that's something I
It's just
appreciate
age.
about both of you. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, but
We've just had more time.
I talk to people of all ages, though. Not all of them have stories as rich as y'all. But I digress. I think today we're here to talk about how do you expand that relationship range.
Yeah,
Okay.
because sometimes things click. You like a person, you hang out with them, and then there'll be people at work, and you tend to go talk, even as a leader, to the people that you like to talk to. And then you're like, but some of these other people are important too, but I don't really like talking to them. So, Mikey, how do we solve this problem?
Well, that's a new problem, right? The idea of like, how do
Hmm.
I expand my range all by itself is just like, well, just like more people. And then people are like, well, how do you like more people, right?
Hmm.
There is a podcaster or well, she's not quite a doctor. I,
Hmm.
I I'm struggling to bring this up in the right kind of way. She was on a
Listen.
lot of podcasts, right?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
No. I was like, I could tell you were struggling. And before we even started this, some of you were watching live right now, watching Lead Better. Some of you were listening later. Seconds before we went on, Mikey said to Sierra and myself, there's going to be something weird I'm going to bring up, and I just got to get. So now, like, I was all ready for you to do it, and then you seem to be like even really hesitant. So now
Yes.
the tension has built where I
Yes.
can't actually wait for you to explain the conundrum that you're about to lay out for us.
I don't want to publicly throw anybody under the bus, especially people
I
that we
understand.
don't know.
Okay, I get it.
But there is this public figure who has been
Hmm.
quoting this study about popularity that had been
Hmm.
studied by a Dr. Van Sloan. So I'll use that name because I'll tell you
Okay.
why in a little bit. And as the study is described, it is said that this doctor asked high school students
Hmm.
to write out the number of people in their class that they liked, right?
Hmm.
And there's a strong correlation with popularity and the number of people that they said that they liked.
Hmm.
So the strongest correlation for who is popular in your high school class is based upon how many people they liked already, right?
That you like, not how many people like you, but how if you
Yes.
like other people, they will tend to like you.
Yes. And so I thought,
Right.
oh, that's fascinating. Let me look into the study. The study
Aha.
doesn't seem to exist at all. But I don't want to talk
Ah.
about the fact that the study doesn't exist. I want to talk about if the study did exist, would it actually yield the kind of results that she implies? Because you can find it in a lot of different places
Right.
on very popular podcasts where she's quoted.
And this is your point, which is on the part that we can't talk about because you don't want to talk about it because then people will think we're throwing somebody on the bus who might have valuable things to say in the world. But they have a series of viral videos that seem to be built around this fictitious study.
Yes. Now, if the study is actually done, I do wonder if all we're doing is taking this one question into a cohort of people, but it would need to be a cohort that already has affinity, they already know each other. And that cohort of people says, of all the people in the room, write down everyone that you like. You can define that however you want to. Write down how many people you like. The definition of like is up to you. So let's say that we do this in our firm of 95 people that we've got in our firm. Do you think the correlation of at the bottom of the survey, you're asking a question like, is this the most popular person in our firm? If it would correlate in the same way with that person probably likes more people than anybody else in the firm as well. So there's something in there in expanding your relationship range that seems like, even though the study might not be real, there seems like there might be a correlation there. And it does seem like an interesting thing that I wish the study was actually real. But we're going a step further here. And so this is kind of a two-part question here. Like, okay, let's say that we're committed to this idea that if I just like more people, that'll expand my ability to be like, to be more popular,
your range,
to be more reciprocal. My range, it still is leaving me with the question of how do I like more people if I don't actually like more people?
There's, if I just want to push back a little bit on what you said or reframe it. I don't think popularity is the question that we need to get at here. I think we need to think about followership. Like, write out how many people you like, sure. And then write the person, like the top 5 people you would want to follow in our firm. That's a question I'd be interested to know the answer for and see how that correlates. But there are a lot of places that we could look for this. I think that leaders who spend the time to get to know and expand their relationship range, those who know they can't just go to the people that they spend the most time with, that they have the most affinity for, that they have the most similarities with, those people, they just come across differently, more genuine, more approachable, more engaged. And they can also ask more of their team. Like, it's not just about you should have more relationships because of that, but by having more of a relationship with folks, it's a little selfish, but you can ask more of them. You can ask them to move faster. You can ask them to understand where you're coming from. You can ask them to embrace change. So it's pertinent for leaders to consider this and where they are. Do they have a narrow range? Do they have a broad range? And how can they get to the heart of this field note of what is our shared purpose and how do we define that together to create more relationships and expand our ranges?
Yeah. I have one more question because I loved that answer. I have one more question before we get into like what the field note actually says.
Yeah.
Scott, were you in the room when our guest speaker 3 months ago was talking about the Dunbar number? And
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so one of our partners asked a question that kind of challenged what he was saying about the Dunbar number being 150 is really the only number of like real relationships that you can have. And he pushed back on that 150 number. Do you remember what he said? Do you remember how he kind of expanded our thinking on that?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually wrote down some notes from that one, but I actually don't remember how he said it. I remember being impressed by it, but then I didn't go back to review my notes, but fill me in. Because I remember there was a very important discussion.
Yes. Yeah. And so what he said about that 150 number that Dunbar says is Dunbar himself qualified it as close relationships.
Yes, right.
So that the type of relationships that we're talking about here could actually be a much larger number. And if you talk about that as the Dunbar number, it might be closer to 1,500 or 2,000.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even that then takes a little process. And we have lots of content at Admired Leadership about how you build those networks. But let me see if I can thread what you set up, how Sierra then pushed back and totally destroyed your argument. And then we'll come to where we can actually see if we can make something that will improve upon the field note. So the field note kind of just makes the thing that you would sort of assume that kind of is like the fictitious Van Sloan argument, which is we were like, oh, if you like other people, they're going to like you. And you'd be like, wow, because that just makes total sense to you. And that's why you go like, that's so genius that was done at Harvard or wherever. And so if you went and said, though, leaders need to be effective based on purpose, and if it's more than just we had shared interests or we went to the same school or our kids, play tennis together or whatever it is, then the challenge to the leader is saying, there are people that you don't really click with, but are very important in your network. And you're not going to click with them because you have the same hobbies or you laugh at the same jokes. That you need to start shifting this towards, are you moving in the same direction around this thing? Right. So you could, and I think this goes to Sarah's point, if you were at a party, right, and you said, oh, over here is Emma Stone talking to Zendaya. And you'd be like, that's probably a pretty fun conversation. But if I'm interested in, space rocketry and Elon Musk is over in the other corner, I had a chance to meet Elon. I opted out of it. It was midnight. I chose not to go meet Elon at midnight at the Tesla factory, the true story. But I don't think any of us think that Elon is probably like really likable, like in terms of like, will he like instantly click with you at a party? But you're like, but if my goal is to get to the moon or Mars, then now we can kind of tolerate each other, even if we rub each other the wrong way. And right. So what the challenge in this field note is, can you as a leader click with all the people you click with? It's not the people that you like. It's the people that you're willing to work with, bind with, and even say, well, I really dislike this guy, but he's so good at that you elevate that. And now all of a sudden that leads to the then not only for who you're clicking with, but then to Sierra's point, where's the followership? Because then if people see you as kind of saying, I want to make your goals come true. So whether or not you think I'm abrasive or I talk too much or whatever else, you'll be like, let's go, let's get working on this. And so the shared purpose then is the thing that's the magic in the field note. And I think ultimately in leadership effectiveness. All right. Did I set that up okay? Did that weave everything?
Yeah, it did. It makes me want to ask the question, how important then does it show up in hiring, much less in day-to-day kind of leadership interaction?
I'm going to hire Zendaya.
Yeah. Right.
She's gonna have great stories.
Yeah. It's interesting because I wanted to go back to the shared purpose piece and how you define that and how useful of a frame that is. I mean, we've all been to weddings where we're at a table and we don't actually know anybody at our wedding table. Maybe we're a close friend of the bride and groom, but we're not as into their social circle because of proximity or what have you. A very simple question that a lot of people will ask at the wedding goes back to shared purpose. How do you know the couple? And getting into that and having that be your first anchor or your first intro into the conversation. People do that in our firm of, okay, how did you find our firm or what drew you to working here? That's again, a question of shared purpose. So I think those are two small ways that you can start to build that feeling of affiliation. But so too, I would like to equate this field note or apply it to a situation that comes up a lot in collaborative teams. So sometimes you've got the consultants on the one side and you've got the leaders on one side and you've got the internal team on one side and there's tension. How do you reset that tension? How do you build relationships with people where you feel like they're asking a lot of me, they're working hard in these ways? I think you can redefine that relationship or start to build that relationship around our shared purpose. Anytime I'm in a working team that has that tension, I reroute us always back to our shared purpose. We all want this project to succeed. Mm-hmm. We all want to see this leader maintain their credibility through change. How do we plan better and anticipate the challenges and the milestones better so that we can prepare this leader effectively together? Redefining that and finding your affiliation or the relationship builder with those people that maybe you wouldn't naturally gravitate to, going back to shared purpose is always square one for me.
Do you sometimes find that becomes an excuse to not actually build affinity for the with the person aside from purpose?
Yeah.
It's like I don't like you. I don't think I'm going to, but we want the same thing. Like certainly an admired leader wouldn't say that out loud, but
right.
Do you somehow use that as an excuse?
Sure. I think they absolutely could. I struggle with relating to that perspective. I really struggle to put myself in those shoes because I feel like you could put me in a room with anyone and I can find anyone fascinating. Like there is something that can make anyone fascinating to me.
Yeah, right.
Because I just want to talk about their passions or whatever. But I get that there are some people where like, no matter what, I'm just not going to gravitate to you. I think this is maybe you're in and the start of the conversation. But my counterpoint, and I understand the point of the field note is get to that shared purpose and define your relationship through that. for people who, they've tried that, it's still not helping them really build affiliation in a way that can create that working relationship that you need to have with this person. I get them talking about their passions. Tell me something that you're really excited about, because that I can always latch on to. I'm a passion-driven person, but that doesn't mean that that's going to work for everybody either. So I like that it's about shared purpose. That's something anybody can do. I struggle to relate to that feeling of, I just don't want to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Well, I want to test out an idea that I just thought of, because as you were talking about the team issue and the way Mikey was setting this up earlier, there is in the field note the challenge to the leader. Like, get past your own sort of likes and dislikes and find the shared purpose so that you're more effective as a leader. You have a wider relational range. What's the role of the leader, perhaps working with a team where maybe he senses some friction, where the leader then is, without, you can't call too much attention to it, but does it help if a leader is always leaning in to point out everybody's particular, like naming, because sometimes specificity matters. She's a genius in terms of the way that she finds things in the database. And aren't we so lucky to have somebody like this over here who's got this, their understanding of the supply chain and what we're trying to do in our new, operation in France, wherever, it's like very complicated. If you're always specific, if in the room, she doesn't really get along with this person and they don't really get along with that person. But if I continually am pointing this out, am I helping people kind of lean into that idea that maybe this is okay? We come together for a purpose. And I'll add to it, there's a recent little dust up here in Pittsburgh because from the prior Steelers era, one of the big players talked about the fact that the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, was not a good teammate. That really liked him, the fact that we got into the Super Bowl and we won, but I didn't like hanging around with him, right? They came together for a shared purpose. And we see that all the time in sports teams. But the coaches, I'm sure, are saying, you have a job to do and you have a job to do. Can you guys work together? Can you spend some time together off the field? But I don't need you going to a movie together. I need you doing the thing together that you need to do together, right? Is there a way for you to model that helps facilitate this in the team?
I think you can highlight those qualities that are admirable that get you to that shared purpose. But I would say I'd probably take it back a notch and say your team needs to have some level of camaraderie to get through whatever project you're trying to lead. I would take it outside of the workplace and take some of the work product out of it, because that might be where some of the tensions lie. How can we get people on doing something that's a shared experience together where nobody's an expert and they get to learn from each other, or they get to share something that's special or access to something that's special? Because I think the team dinner only is going to go so far. People are going to gravitate to, who they're going to sit at a certain place in the table because they want to talk to the people they want to talk to. But how can you as a leader create spaces where everybody's on the same playing field and gets to learn something together? That's where I would lean for that one. Because I think even if you're highlighting the things that you most appreciate about certain team members, there's going to be an ego involved as they're hearing that of, why aren't they highlighting me? And maybe they're not as good at that as our leader thinks they are. And I don't want to think that way, but some people are going to have that frustration if they are insecure or if they have beef with somebody on the team. So I would take it back a notch and say, how can we create a shared experience together that's special, that brings people to understand each other more, that creates that deep connection? Of course, you can try and highlight those qualities in people that bring us closer to our shared goal, but I have questions about how well that really builds that relationship.
Yeah, over time.
I like it. It seems like even if you don't have an issue with relationship range, that you should probably take advantage of the benefits of focusing on purpose anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and how big or small you define that purpose, I think, can vary. Is our shared purpose this project that we're working on together right now? Is our shared purpose the organization and the broader impact we're having on society? You can go big, you can go small with the shared purpose and how you define that in your relationship and how you connect to it. I work with some organizations that have a very, patient-focused mission. And then have that as your conversation starter, your intro for how can I start to build affiliation or likability with this person? Let's talk about our shared purpose. Then all of a sudden you're hearing about how their aunt had this disease or this disorder or this illness that brings them to this cause. And all of a sudden you feel more affiliation. So I think often it's how do I get them talking and build the start of that relationship? And then it builds like a normal relationship would. But starting at that shared purpose is sort of that inroad for folks that maybe have a more narrow relationship range.
Great. All
There you
right.
go.
Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate your time today. We'll talk again tomorrow. Join us.
See ya.
Thanks.
Bye now.